of our Dyslexia Me campaign, we are meeting up with incredible individuals to help share their story and their advice around mental health and dyslexia. We have another phenomenal guest. We have Helen here today, who's joining us in this beautiful surroundings. Helen, would you tell us, first of all, a massive thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with us. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Until Easter, I was a teacher for 2 days a week. I have been a Senko, so kind of my background's teaching largely, but now I'm kind of an indie little do my own thing kind of person. I do research around dyslexia, I do assessments. I'm doing some work in the commercial sector and a bit of third sector evaluation work, and just make a lot of noise really around dyslexia and special needs and making sure kids get decent provision in school. That's sort of my driving force.
Absolutely. And what was your kind of your education like? If you don't mind,
no, it's fine.
Mind asking.
I went to regular school. I grew up in Leamington Spa, so it's hardly horrible. Very, very fortunate. I went to a really nice sort of school just around the corner from my parents' house. I learnt to read and write and do everything all right. It was all fine. Got to secondary school. I got straight A's and A stars at GCSE, so I'm not daft. Clearly,
congratulations.
No, massive. I've worked, but I wasn't underachieving. But I got to A-level maths, and oh god, tears in the classroom. Couldn't read the questions. Couldn't make sense of it. Just proper. When I throw my toys out my pram, it's not very subtle. But my teacher and my mum put their heads together because mum had done a load of work at the college in Leamington with adult literacy. My teacher was she was amazing, still is amazing. So they put their heads together and sent me off to Great Malvern which is in the Midlands, to get assessed for dyslexia. And I just felt really stupid. But my journey at school was good in that I had good friends and the rest of it. But it's just this kind of overriding feeling of not being enough, not doing enough, and feeling thick. And on paper, of course, I'm not, but that feeling, it stays with you.
Where did that kind of that the confidence side of it, and the mindset of thinking, using the terminology, thinking I'm thick, and you hear this, especially in the dyslexic world, so many times that people have been labelled as lazy or stupid, and wrongly so. But what was that kind of like for you? Was it stemmed because you felt, you've done incredible and you're doing incredible things, but
thank you.
Where did that kind of confidence and that feeling not enough stem from?
Oh, that's I think probably in some ways myself. Self-compassion, I'm growing to understand, is not very prevalent in women with neurodiversity. And I knew that I knew more than I knew that I knew more than I could get out and in my head. Reading is just a mission and a half. And A-level mechanics, so the questions are quite technical. And I was just and always, I don't know, we were saying at lunch earlier, weren't we, that you always look at what everybody else does and what they can do that you can't. And I would see that, and I don't know, it's just why can't I do that? I'm rubbish. And you self-talk, I think was what you said. You become, it's Baudrillard, this French philosopher, who you become your own reality, and if you talk yourself in. So I just felt a bit thick. I was never labelled stupid. My maths teacher in year 10 was an interesting character who didn't help, but I'm clearly not stupid. I was rationally, but
it's funny, isn't it? Not funny.
No, I understand.
But when there's, it's odd, and things that we remember. When I look back, kind of my childhood, there's certain things that a teacher would have said to me that still sticks with me.
Yes,
I can still remember it as if it was yesterday. And we're talking many years ago. And it's that impact, isn't it, that someone will have in a kind of a figure of authority, I guess, as a teacher.
Absolutely.
And who you look up to for their advice and their and if they make these certain comments, it can just stay with a child for
forever. I'm 40, and that was between year 10, so 25 years. No, hang on. 15. A lot of this. Only got a degree in engineering, could be designing aeroplanes. But it does. I think because your teachers, especially when you're at primary school and stuff, you've got one teacher, and so they're on a pinnacle, aren't they? And if you've got somebody who isn't necessarily compassionate, or who just on the wrong day at the wrong time says the wrong thing, it stabs you in the heart sometimes. It's awful.
And because there is a link, within kind of neurodiversity and the sensitivity side of it that we then, will it's almost like you're waiting for that comment to come, and then it comes, and then suddenly then you are labelled with that, even whether it's said again. It doesn't matter. The damage is
it's in your mind, absolutely.
And then, so education wise, when you say, you found it more difficult reading, was it that
for me? Yeah, reading, absolutely.
And then that set you apart from the other students in your mind of what?
Yeah, it's so much like I've gone on and done PhDs and all the rest of it, and so much of kind of the concept of intelligence and being well educated, well versed is like one talks about people being well read. You don't talk about them being well calculated, but this concept of being able to read and being able to create this person and that person, like there's so much married together and knitted together that with intelligence and being bright and being good and a decent contributor to society is linked to reading and literacy. And I don't like reading. I'll read books, but it has to be something that grabs me. And
continuously throughout the reading.
Yeah, exactly that. But like, I don't particularly read for fun. I read a lot because I have to for work and head in journals, but I'm text to speech all the time. But it's the cultural value that's placed on reading, I think, and it's in schools now, like this reading for pleasure. You must learn to love reading. Well, no, you need to be able to read or access written word. Doesn't mean I have to like reading.
I guess it's that concept, isn't it? When we talk about, what we're doing effectively is, when we're reading something, is trying to take that information, decode it back in, and then do something with that information.
Exactly that.
And there is this concept of actually the information, if we had it through a podcast or if someone was verbally saying to it, does that count? And I guess whether we're still, heaped in that history of being able to think actually that's the only way that you can take the right, the written thing. When we're talking educational side of it, for pleasure, for me, I find reading with my dyslexia, troublesome, in the sense, I'll get 2 or 3 pages in, very lethargic and not too sure what I'm doing. It's very heavy going. It's almost, it's like almost sends me to sleep, even though I'm excited about what I'm reading.
Yeah.
But then podcasts, I always feel like I'm cheating a little bit if I'm listening to podcasts, because it's like, I don't know, like a naughty way of reading and getting that kind of information through. I don't know, when I reflect back to the way that it's meant to be done.
I think there's a sort of cultural snobbery. Like, I did a sociology PhD because apparently I'm a massive sociology geek, but like it's this idea of it's in education discourse at the moment, and it was over the last few years, it's been this whole idea of cultural capital. And it's taken Bourdieu. He's like I'm a big fan of the old Bourdieu, and it takes his concepts of kind of what's good and what's valuable and what do we respect, and so much of the cultural values that are edified within education at the moment are kind of those typical white middle class, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant that we read, we do this, we do these kind of things, and it's very much our team. But if you're not on that team, you feel totally marginalised by it. And if you're a dyslexic person or a neurodiverse person, or if you're not white, or if you're not part of that club, then it can seem like you're trying to scale Everest wearing plimsolls. Like it just.
So heavy going.
It's really heavy going, and you're an outcast, and you are sort of somehow stigmatised. Even if you're bright at school, if you listen to things, or if you're like the best carpenter in the world, but you can't write Shakespeare, well, somebody's got to make a table. Like it's just there's such a snobbery around it.
It is what we benchmark as
valuable,
being valuable, and being fully educated, or using terminologies like fully educated.
Don't get me going. Don't get me going.
We started on something like that. but genuinely, it's funny, isn't it? When I can use the word funny, I don't mean to use the word.
I understand what you mean,
but it's how we do benchmark whether we're educated. If we had, in my day it was GCSEs in school, and we still look back and go, oh, how many GCSEs did I get? And if it wasn't, a certain amount, or if we didn't get any, we still think, well, actually that's benchmarked on my education. But then what you've achieved the next stage, why do you think school has such an impact? Because I was thinking this the other day, and sorry, I've asked you lots of questions.
No, it's all right. Go on.
I know where I'm going with this one. So when we look at the school, say we go to school, say secondary school for 5 years, and then there's the 6th year, which is sixth form, and then obviously college and stuff. But sometimes we're in jobs longer than 5 or 6 years. But it's like secondary school, but it has such an impact on our lives. And we always remember back to those situations and how we left that school with what grades we had. Why do you think that has such an impact?
I think it's at school, so much of your identity is formed. So much of you, because you're sort of, year 9s, they go a bit bonkers because the hormones kick in. But like, you go in there, this kind of little bright-eyed and bushy-tailed little year 7, and you then find yourself thrown to the wolves as too strong, but you've got all these different kind of competing groups. So socially, that I'm fully like drawing on board, it's so sad. But like, it's your formative years, and the education system is a self-propagating thing. So you value education, it has a huge impact on you because that's part of that culture is embodied in you. And because sort of the political structures and social structures around us value your 5A stars to C, and you do your A levels, and you go to, in an ideal world, you've been to the right prep school and the right private school, and there's a kind of a pathway that way.
So you leave this perfect specimen
sort
of
the trail you blaze.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly that. So I think there's and so if you don't take that sort of predefined, here's the way to success, as is defined within so many structures, how schools are measured with Ofsted by sort of who goes to Oxbridge at sixth form. My husband told me that, and I was like, what? So there's just so much embodied in, you have to go school, college, uni, the right school, college and uni, so that if you don't take that pathway and you end up being a master craftsman who builds houses, or you're like the best plasterer, and they call you on a Sunday morning when the ceiling falls in, and you're amazing, but somehow because you haven't ticked the kind of traditional valued embodiment of success, then somehow you are viewed as less, and it's not right. It's not right.
I guess it is. When we talk about career paths, and we say, if I wanted to be a pilot, we have to, or a dentist, or all these different, very skilled, positions. You have to go through a certain level of education and training in years. Do you feel that when we took that kind of mental health, and in regards to, say, asking a 15 or 16-year-old what they want to do for the rest of their lives within the job that they want to do, sometimes I'm 45 and I think it's 45, 46 now. I'm still unsure on certain things. But do you think it's quite a young? It has to be done because we look at the educational side. But do you think it's quite a young age, isn't it, to ask someone? I think personally, what is it that they want to do? Yeah,
I think the questions we should be asking are, what do you enjoy and what are you good at?
Perfect.
I think I was going to be a child engineer by now. I did well at that, didn't I? Sound like a lead balloon.
Still got time.
Would you fly an aeroplane designed by me?
I'd fly in an aeroplane.
No, I think at the time I was at school, I liked hitting stuff. So I did engineering because I liked hitting stuff, and I did German because I liked talking. You may have noticed. But I think the questions are wrong. I do. I think the questions are wrong. What are you good at and what do you enjoy? And the kids I do private tutoring for, and talking to the kids now, they're like, I just don't like geography. I'm like, well, why are you thinking of doing it for A-level then? Because my parents said this. I'm like, well, let's all have a sit down and chat together, because 2-3 years, X amount of time doing something that makes you miserable because you think it might get you into a degree course that might contribute to your life in a few years' time. It's quite a bleak outlook. It's quite a functional outlook, and it's. I guess there are so many moving parts, and when I say moving parts, we have different influences. Parents just want the best for their children. Of course they do. It's always that's all they want is the child to get a good education and be
get into a good job and be safe and happy, and that's every parent's dream to make sure that they can they can help in any way, shape, or form. But sometimes those influences could not be in alignment with. Because what the child wants necessarily, and then we have the different elements of well, if you get this job it pays well, or if you do this it pays well. So there's so many moving parts and what that. The variables in a person's life is always n+1, isn't there? N being current number. I think it's value systems. The educational value system at the moment is very white collar, professional, school, college, uni, that way. But there are the value systems, and it's
you find if as an individual, the child and their family, if they all kind of chime with each other and the parents are able to support, the parents are able to, not, you know, financially, but like culturally as well, if they can support their kids to do what they need to do to get where they want to be, that's great. I think a huge problem happens is when there's a clash and a, create myself a habitus clash. I've written a paper on that, but like it's where things don't chime properly and where there's a discord. And I think for kids with dyslexia, because there's already the discord of reading, writing, you know, literacy stuff can be quite difficult for them. There's a discord because they're going to find just accessing a more traditional academic pathway more difficult. But not to say they're not clever, it's far from it. It's just accessing it and kind of how to unravel and share and like unravel sounds negative, but like to share their knowledge. And I think I think the difficulty you've got is where things clash, and it's so much around supporting kids in the classroom is based on a relationship, and it's the links in a social network, sort of within a formal legal guideline network. And I think if one of the kind of elements, if they don't align, then that's where it can just go completely wrong. If they all work together, then this kid, you know, the child in the centre of it, or the young person in the centre of it, they get a really good springboard. And I think in an ideal world, that's what you want. Because I don't know any teachers who want their kids to fail. Like, and if they do, why on earth are they teachers? Like, absolutely no, that's just nonsensical. But, and again, like you said, most parents want the best for their kids, even if they kind of don't get it right. That's not because there's not malice there, is there? No.
But again, sometimes it's a case of we take on everything from our parents. Sometimes our mannerisms, and again, I suggest what likes and dislikes are. And again, that side of it, and again, not letting your parents down. And I guess from someone who's dyslexic, having that kind of anxiety of what people want you to achieve and what you can achieve within the way that you're having to do work within the education system can be very challenging.
I remember seeing, it was my graduation weekend, so I graduated in 2005. That's amazing. And I remember sitting talking to my mum, because I had a job lined up in France to go off and be an engineer. It was everything on paper I was like, I'm going to do this, and then I just went, Mum, I can't do it. And I remember sitting next to my mum outside the mapping building in Sheffield. It was the engineering building. And she goes, Mum, I just can't do it. And she told me that she'd had like a massive thing where she was going to be a teacher and just went, ugh! And the journey, that couple of years between going, I'm going to be an engineer, to actually I'm going to train to teach and work in Barnsley, which is like, I loved him. I would live in Barnsley quite happily if it wasn't so cold and dark in winter. But it's that journey, even telling my parents I don't want to be an engineer, because my dad was a mechanical, he's a chartered engineer and he's amazing at what he does. Telling them was like, I'm really sorry, Mum and Dad. Yeah, properly. And then if you ever look at my LinkedIn, it's a bit bonkers. The journey's definitely not a linear journey. And I still now, I am 40 years old and I've got a kid of my own. I'm apparently on paper, I'm a proper grown-up, and I still worry that am I disappointing my parents? And my parents, they're not horrible. Like, they're amazing people. They're kind, they're gracious. They really support us for everything. But
do you think that's a neurodiverse thing?
Probably. I don't know.
That's a massive question, I know. But that, because when you say you look at your LinkedIn and on paper you're a very well-educated adult.
I'm a proper grown-up.
Oh, real grown-up.
Honest.
But you are, and you've achieved so many incredible things, and within your line of work, you help so many people with what you do.
And I'm squirming at what you're saying now.
I noticed this, because you don't like any compliments or any facts. But
thank you. That's really kind.
But that element is, and I know I alluded to this before. Are you still trying to work out where that doubt came from? Because don't get me wrong, I speak to so many,
of course you do.
So many people over the years, and that self-doubt kicks in more time. I spoke to more people around neurodiversity and dyslexia with that self-doubt. I'm not saying it's only owned.
No, I understand.
But it seems to be heightened, and whether it was something, some sort of, and when I use the word trauma very lightly, in the sense of in school, maybe some of
it's knocked you.
Yeah, some of it's knocked you. You don't have to. But
I
trying to search for this answer. It's just interesting to try and...
Well, I've been medicated for like anxiety and stuff, and it's all over the internet. It's no secret that my mental health is a bit wobbly because I have just like I squirm when you say nice things. Of course I'm not an idiot. Of course I'm clearly not. But like you sort of squirm with this idea of I'm really, really pants at reading. I measure my own reading comp just because one of the tests I do for assessments, it's like what comes out, and it's like relative to the rest of me, it was really, really pants. Like, and so I was like, it explained a lot, but in explaining a lot, I was also incredibly aware of my shortcomings, as it were. And I know rationally it's not shortcoming, it's my profile, but like I look at people and you put people on these pedestals and you just think, oh my God, they're amazing. There are so many people who I think, just look at what they achieve. What am I doing? I don't know where that comes from.
But have you ever thought there are so many people that look at you and think what you've achieved?
Yeah, and then I laugh and put a really weird face and do this.
Okay. but like, I struggle with the English language, but I have an absolute love for the English language. Like Stephen Fry, if he could read me a shopping list, and I would probably listen to it on a podcast, going to sleep at night, because it just has, and that's strange, but he has like his voice, the way that he uses words,
very articulate,
and even Russell Brand, the way that they're articulate, they utilise the English language. I love that element. Me, myself, trying to replicate that or even write some of those words. Yeah, I just know I put myself in a situation that I would find very difficult.
It's weird though, because I speak a few different languages. Mostly.
Get that quiet.
Mostly born out of. English is like this weird hybrid language. So grammatically, we have a Germanic structure, so we're kind of Northern European, but a lot of our words are from Latin as well, because everyone came here, stuck it in a pot and mixed it all up. And so I think we've got a really cool thing with English, because it means we can look at other languages and kind of learn them more easily in some ways. So like my dad lived in France when I was a kid, so I was like, I want to learn French because I don't like not understanding what's happening, and it's pattern spotting. For me, maths and languages are so connected, and proper geek.
No, I've never heard of it.
No, but it is. It's pattern spotting for me, and so first I love maths because it's really interesting, and so I was like, let's read the dictionary in Italian or something because I want to spot the patterns. And I worked in Italy, and I was like, I can't understand what's happening. I need to know what's happening. So I was like, right, I'm gonna do this. And I did. I can speak Italian sort of, to make myself understood quite well. And I talked about my PhD in sociology on our last holiday abroad before COVID. We were chatting to one of the people working in the hotel. It was lovely. And I'm really lucky, but it's so much born out of it. I don't like not understanding. And also like Italian, Spanish, German, they always make the same sound. Like they're so much more straightforward spelling wise. French is a bit silly like English, but my dad lived there, so I was lucky with that. And then I don't know, languages are fascinating. I think English is such a cool springboard for that. But
because I've always thought of language as almost don't even bother, because in my head I think to myself, I failed at the English language, and that's my self-talk, thinking I failed at the English language, so try and damage any other language. I'm not going to get down that road. But it was, whenever I've spoken to people before about, doing languages, and they'd say, well, if you're dyslexic and you struggle with this, then, I wouldn't even, think to this. But, listening to you say it, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know it would be, but it was interesting when you said about the patterns. Because that's literally how that's how I learned. That and YouTube, they're the two things.
Oh, YouTube. One of the things that got me through, I did an MRes before my PhD, because obviously engineering doesn't train you for sociology. So I had to kind of learn how to be a sociologist. We had to do a statistics module, and I did all the stats I could because that's all I wanted to know, because I'm a geek. And the yellow, the dummies books.
Yeah.
I've bought a load of the statistics for dummies books.
Yeah.
They see me through stuff. That, YouTube, love it.
Probably, over my life, probably bought about 6 of those. I won't say which ones I purchased. You have to just guess. But yeah, I think I have. Yeah, whenever I'm thinking, learn something, a dummies book, and some of them are really like.
I mean, if that's the dummies book, what's the not dummies book like? Oh no.
So I need to ask, where is your love for learning and your zest for wanting to learn? Where does that come from? Because you are very educated. you're going to squirm now, but you're very educated, and you have a real passion for learning. Not thinking, I need to understand that a bit more, and I want to learn that. Where do you think that's?
To be useful. So languages. We went to South America, like me and Andy, my husband, we got married, and bless him, patient man, credit him publicly wherever I can. But like, I don't like not understanding. So languages, I'll learn a language if I know I'm going to be somewhere frequently. Then I'm like, well, I'm visiting a country. Like, pull my finger out. I'm not going to expect everybody around me to talk English. That's just really rude. So I'll learn French or Spanish or whatever, and that's to be useful. And I think around dyslexia, if you don't understand, I know my journey, and my journey's not atypical, but I'm not every other person. So, like, talk to people, learn, listen. 2 ears, one mouth, use them in proportion. I do. I know this is hard to believe, genuinely, but like, because I talk. But like, if you don't listen to people and actually hear what they're saying, then how do you know what the problem is? Like, again, it's so steeped in this kind of white middle class, this is what our world is. So if you're not in that club, your voice is ignored. So for me, learning is about amplifying voices that you wouldn't necessarily hear.
Yeah.
I did memorise on a PhD so that I understood a bit more about policy, and so that I had a PhD, so that I had a doctorate in economics. It opens doors, and it gives me an academic credential to be like, she's not daft. Mum says I hide intelligence well, she's not wrong. But like that taught me how to learn and how to research, to amplify voices. And I think all the stuff I've done with BDA and stuff I'm doing now, that I've kind of managed to finally set myself up to be independent and pay the mortgage. Yay. It's like been a toolkit to be useful, because there's no point. Research sitting on a shelf, it's like a chocolate fibre. What's the point of it? Use it. Like, Teflon exists because somebody made something to go with in the space program or something. Or like superconductors were an accident, so but these things are used. So social research can have the same thing.
Yeah.
What's the point of doing it for the sake of doing it? Let's be useful. So yeah, to make a noise.
With regards, thank you for sharing that, by the way.
That's all right.
And every single time you mention something, it's like, oh yeah, I speak this language, and I've learned this, and I've got a doctorate. All these different things, which is it's truly, truly inspiring. What about kind of self-care, in the sense of kind of when you're looking, you're kind of going into maybe to learn something, or you're setting yourself out for the day of ruling, going through books or something. Is there any kind of self-care tips or anything that you do that helped you? I'll give you an example for me. So when my dyslexia starts, letters move around on the screen, but not always for me. It only happens if I'm stressed or I'm tired
or whatever.
Yeah. So they start to kind of move. Now, before, I'd have a laptop and I'd be working on this, and I'd be trying to send this email, and then I'd just be chasing the email.
Oh, that's exhausting.
So, and then it would take me 55 minutes or something, probably a little bit longer or shorter, to try and send this email. Now, I know that my parameters are to literally shut the laptop down, go for a walk, rest, meditate, or do something. Okay? So that would be like a little, that would work for me, and then I'd come back and then work. Before, I would be tirelessly trying to send this email, which would be too tired. Is there anything that you've noticed about yourself that
I would do? Like, my mum, when I was at school, mum would be like, she would have to take my books off me to stop me working. And when I first met Andy as well, so we met when I was on my NQT year, Andy's my husband, like, he'd be like, stop it, just stop it. And now I still have to be told to stop, but like, I've got a garden office that is it's the Helen Cave, and it's awesome. And sometimes I let the boys in, but I've got when they're good. But like, I've got an exercise bike in there, so if the weather sucks, then my exercise bike is in there. It's not just a clothes horse, although I think there's videos online where I've got like a coat on there, but I use that all the time. Or when the weather's good, I'm out and about on my bike. Or I do drawings too, like
another skill.
Yeah, my social media's open, so like, if you ever find me and it's fixed, then it's me. But I can't do anything else. If I'm grappling with I drew this watch the other day, and it was like 3.5-4 hours on a Sunday night, and I I was going to finish it. I couldn't do anything else. So it filled my space with, my head would like not work. Biking, I love it. Like I go out on my bike and get the wind between my ears and it's fun. And sometimes just going up, I've got a trampoline next to my office. It's not for Daniel, my little, it's my trampoline.
It's your space that you just want.
Sometimes I let the boys on it, but the trampoline was absolutely bought for me, because for me it's
good.
Physical. I need to get energy out.
Absolutely, and what you've identified is you need that kind of physical side of it to be able to kind of release, the bounds and things, and the taking your mind away from other things that you're doing. For me, photography. I love photography. Purely, I love wildlife photography. So, in the sense of if a bird's just about to fly, I would take a picture of the bird actually fly.
So
cool. It's in action, taking a picture.
Beautiful.
But the amazing thing to help my mental health with regards to this is because the minute I'm focused on the shot, and as soon as I put my eye to the lens, that's all I can think about. Not my mobile phone, not work, not anything else.
Yeah.
So within that time period, it's an escapism, and martial arts as well, because you do these. So I think it is absolutely important, it's imperative what you've said, is to try and find these different things that can take you away to be able to do those things.
I totally agree, and I think quite often, like my husband's got a PhD as well in something to do with messing around with amino acids.
That's probably not the correct answer.
Honestly,
but it sounds very like.
He's clever. He's proper clever. Don't tell him that. But so we're both quite booky. But he plays like some football manager game, and I'm like, have you won the Premiership again? But that's his outlet. For me, because I'm sat at the desk all day at home, or it's quite a sedentary job, and I'm a fidget bum. I'm a terrible fidget bum. I have the attention span of a gnat. So yeah, for me, biking, Wiltshire is beautiful. I grew up in Warwickshire, which is nice. South Yorkshire's hilly and quite painful on a bike, so I didn't really, even Hillsborough, the bottom of the hill where I live, it's hard work. Wiltshire's doable, and it's so, on a day like today, I would be out and about and it's gorgeous, and it is that physical outlet. But actually, I find that I'm so much more productive, and you stuff, machinations are obviously happening in here, because I'll have I might be out on my bike and I might have a bit of a brain fart and have to stop and record myself think something. So it's really clarifying.
I totally agree.
Brain space, it's so important.
Because if we take mobile phone, we are contactable more now than ever, and everything is prying for our attention. We're continuously, we live off bings. A bing will go off, and then we're immediately taken to where this goes. And for me, if I can leave my mobile phone, and go for a dog walk, it's amazing when you're listening to the birds or you're walking along, and these ideas that you were allowed to just sort of, motivate in your mind and come to you. And that, for your mental health side of it, but the creativity.
Dog walks, because I've got 2 labs, they're deranged and they're beautiful. But dog walks are such a good space. And if I'm on the loo, nobody bugs me on the loo. It might be 5 minutes. I'm not first to stay on the loo for ages. But it is that space where you're not doing anything else. And it is, thoughts kind of coagulate somehow.
But we do, if you take, we go back to kind of say teenagers or kids in general, they are, we're in society, I guess, in the sense of, the mobile phone. I know there's positivities on it, and I'm not saying that, but it does seem that they don't allow a huge amount of their own thoughts, in the sense we are led a lot of the time by...
That's relentless, isn't it?
Yeah, by continuous apps and games and all the other bits and pieces. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not against mobile phones or anything else in this sense, but I'm saying sometimes that break away for your own sanity, your own, mental health,
well-being
is paramount. Again, trying to tell a teenager to put the phone away. I mean, I probably wouldn't want to battle that one.
Not yet, no. We've got all these good ideas. Daniel's 3 this weekend, and we've got all these we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But it's funny actually. Last night I was working with one of my kids that I tutor privately because I keep my hand in because it just matters. I love that, and they're doing for part of their English speaking and listening. They're talking about, you know, we eventually kind of worked out. It was one of those we didn't do anything, but we did loads because it was the thought process to get them to the topic they're going to talk about, and it was about the kind of the force that is Instagram or TikTok, like social media, and how it can make or break people. And she used the phrase, between us we came up with like it's weaponized. I mean, that was, you know, to tick a box to grab the attention, but it's so true. Like, kids they don't get away from it, do they? Like when I was at school, you know, if you had a rubbish day at school, or if heaven forbid you were bullied, at least at home you could get away from it, but you just can't now.
You literally take that, as long as you've got that device with you, you're contactable. So it literally stays with you, 24/7. And it is, you know, it's a subject which I know is being, you know, spoke about, you know, a lot, but it's one that, you know, needs a tech companies, parents, and children.
I wouldn't switch places with a kid now. I look at what the pressure on our kids and stuff, and I just think, my pressure, I think, for what I have had a bit of therapy over years, you know, many years ago when I had proper wobble, and my pressure of it's sort of self-fulfilling, like what's the word, imposed.
Yeah.
But I think structurally so much pressure is imposed on children from things like social media, from you've got to go to uni, and if you don't, then you're a failure, and then it's awful. I wouldn't switch places with a child. And then
how you look and the finance side of it. I mean, you've only got to go on to, you know, when you see a 11-year-old kid making, you know, £20 million in the morning on YouTube. but there is this, you know, this glazed cover, isn't this filter that's
absolutely
put on everything. But yeah, I mean, you know,
fling dyslexia into that mix, and you know, your self-esteem's already wobbly, and then if you've got, like, if you're on chat that's all written, you can't engage with it so well. It's so isolating.
And that's the thing. If you're on like a group chat with all your friends from you know, your classroom friends, or you know, your school friends, and then you're writing something back, you know, and it's an easy target to, you know, to pick up. And then, again, if you're hypersensitive about these things, rightly so, it can lead to that. But,
absolutely, it's really
small conversations and
it's really hard.
And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to speak with us. It's been incredible listening to your journey and all your achievements. I'm sure next time we catch up with you, you'll be saying, "Oh, okay, you'll probably build that aeroplane you were talking about
that no one will ever fly. Don't fly it."
And you probably have your own airway and everything. But in all seriousness, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
It is incredible that, you know, the work you're doing. It is helping so many people, and will continue to help. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Welcome. If you've been affected by anything that we've spoke about today in this talk, then please do check out the links to our website. Thank you so much for joining us on our Dyslexia Me campaign, and please check out other videos during this campaign. Take care, guys. Speak to you soon.
That brings us to the end of this interview. Throughout the month of May, we've had the opportunity to interview some incredible guests specifically about mental health and the relationship between that and dyslexia. Please feel free to click this link here and learn more from Dr. Neil Pass and his experience with his own dyslexia and mental health. We'll see you there.